People used to climb into the cemetery, dig up the bodies of the dead, and then they'd sell these bodies to the College of Surgeons for the doctors to cut up and see how the human body worked. In the 1820s, you got £3 for a corpse, which was a lot of money back then. And the cemetery built the walls to keep people from climbing in, and the towers were manned with guys with pistols and muskets. Anybody came into the cemetery late at night, they just shot them. When O'Connell opened the cemetery in 1832, one of the first rules he made was that it wouldn't just be for Roman Catholics, but people of all religions, or no religion at all, could be buried here. So we have people buried from all the different faiths that exist in the world, and then agnostics and people who don't believe as well. So it's quite unique in that sense that you have a Victorian cemetery not linked to any religion, and this allowed suicides to be buried here and unbaptized children as well. The first part of the cemetery was just this little pocket here, but then it went on, and as land came for sale, they purchased more and more of it, and today it's 124 acres in size, and we've 1.5 million people buried here. The cemetery buried the first person, this person here, on the 22nd of February 1832, Michael Carey, a young boy from the Liberties. He died of consumption. Right from the start, the cemetery recorded every piece of information it could about the person they were burying here. So they recorded the person's name, their occupation, where they lived, their age, their religion, what they worked at, and what they died of. And all of these went into big ledgers like this one in front of me here. So there isn't anybody buried in the cemetery that we don't have a record about. Now, sometimes they'll say unknown if, you know, a body was left outside the gates, but for the most part, we can trace all 1.5 million people that are buried in the cemetery. Daniel O'Connell died in 1847 on his way to Rome. Originally, his body was brought back and buried in an old part of the cemetery, but in 1855, they decided to move him up here and build a round tower above his grave. They commenced building in 1860 and completed in 1869. And a tower that rises 168 feet into the Dublin skyline was the highest building in Dublin for many years. At the base of the tower is O'Connell's last resting place. And let's go have a look at it. Daniel O'Connell's crypt is decorated in this Celtic romantic style. A Celtic motif and crosses and different emblems from an ancient time. Around the walls show different achievements in O'Connell's life. When he was the first Catholic MP for Clare, groundbreaking, the first time Catholics could enter Westminster in hundreds of years. First Catholic Lord Mayor, again a first, and achieved Catholic emancipation, really what he's famed for. His last words were recorded to be, "My body to Ireland, my heart to Rome, and my soul to heaven." And when he died, they took his heart out and they put that in a silver casket. And it was taken to the Irish College in Rome until 1905, when they went to look for it, it was gone. Somebody had stolen the casket, and it's never been recovered. His body, however, was put in a casket, and it can be seen through the trefoils here, an Irish oak casket, 10 foot long, 4 feet wide, and 4 feet down as well. It's said to be good luck to touch the casket of Daniel O'Connell. The other thing down here of interest is the antechamber holds 10 coffins of the O'Connell clan. Sons, daughters, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. This one here is Kate O'Connell, a granddaughter, and she was placed here in 1890. This one here is the last one that they placed in here in 1972. And he was the great-great-great-grandson of Daniel O'Connell. He was a parish priest from Kerry. Now behind these wooden boxes is a lead box. And the corpse is placed inside this lead box and air doesn't get in or out. So the body inside doesn't decay like it would underground. Occasionally they open lead-lined coffins, and it's quite amazing because the bodies inside are much better preserved than the ones in soil. So you have skin and clothes and bones and heads and whatnot in there. So lead-lined coffins afford a great protection to the remains of people. The only downside of lead-lined coffins is that they also preserve diseases. So people have to be in full biosuits when they open them up in case they get contaminated with typhoid from the 1870s or leprosy or smallpox or one of those virulent diseases that were around at the turn of that century. You could go to the top of the staircase and look out from the top of the tower. 168 feet above us here, the tower ended, and you could look out across the city and get a panoramic view. We're above sea level in Glasnevin, so you're already looking down on the city in the valley, but with the tower you could see the top of Liberty Hall, you can see the Wicklow Mountains, the Mourne Mountains in the north, and right back into Meath. Alas, in 1971 somebody placed a bomb in the tower, and when the bomb went off it just blew up the staircase, and now it's just a hollow tube. After Daniel O'Connell, the next person to step into the Irish public life was this guy behind me, Charles Stewart Parnell. He led the Irish Parliamentary Party in Westminster, but when a scandal involving him and Catherine O'Shea broke to light, she being married to another man, Parnell fell from power. He died a year later on the 6th of October 1891, and his funeral was the largest funeral ever seen in the cemetery. 120,000 people lined the streets and marched up here with Parnell. By the time they got here, it was 11 o'clock at night, and they buried him under lamplight, and people said they could see a shooting star go across the night sky. In front of me here is the last resting place of Eamon de Valera, and I remember when I started here first, I marched around the cemetery looking for all these famous graves, and I kept passing this one by because I expected de Valera to have something bigger or I don't know, because love him or loathe him, Eamon de Valera had a huge career in Irish politics. He fought in 1916 in Boland's Bakery. He formed Fianna Fáil, gave us the 1937 Constitution, and really, you know, was Taoiseach 7 times, twice president, a huge figure in Ireland in the last 100 years, and a very simple, modest cross. But you find that in the cemetery. Sometimes people who did lots in life tend to have just a small little cross, and it's generally people with a lot of money do the big ostentatious stuff. When you're given tours up here in Glasnevin, you can very quickly sometimes tell people's politics, because some people want to see Dev and don't want to see Collins, or want to see Collins and don't want to see Dev. But that's what I love about this cemetery, is that if you have one side here, you have the opposite as well. The way they'd operated was to let anyone be buried here. So if you have a British soldier that died in 1916, right beside him you'll have a volunteer that died in 1916, or a capitalist buried beside a socialist, or, you know, whatever mix there is, they'll be up here in Glasnevin. This section of the cemetery is known as the Republican plot of Glasnevin Cemetery, and these are all the men and women who fought for Ireland in one form or another. You could do a whole tour just in this little section here, but we'll do a few while we're here. On my right is James Larkin, the trade union leader who came over from Liverpool and organised the workers to strike in 1913, the Great Lockout under Jim Larkin. And funnily enough, the man that he was opposed was a guy called William Martin Murphy, who's buried just 20 feet away in the circle. Facing Jim Larkin is Maud Gonne McBride, who founder of Ingrid na hÉireann that went on to become the Mon. Harry Boland, who was Michael Collins' best friend and ended up the other side of the Civil War. The O'Rahilly, who was killed in 1916 leading a charge down Moore Street. And right down to names that mightn't be recognisable of men and women who fought in the War of Independence and are buried here amongst our Republican dead. This is the most popular grave in the cemetery without any parallel. It's the final resting place of Michael Collins. Michael Collins fought in 1916 as aide-de-camp to Joseph Mary Plunkett, was sent to Frongoff jail, where he really came into his own and organised people all around the country for the coming War of Independence. He was elected to the first Dáil and made Minister of Finance. And in 1921, with 5 other guys, he signed the Anglo-Irish Treaty. He came back to Ireland divided on civil war and took the pro-treaty side. And on the 22nd of August 1922, in a place called Bale na Blá, about a mile from where he was born, there was an ambush that lasted 8 minutes. And afterwards there was just one casualty, a 31-year-old Michael Collins. His body was brought back by boat into the port of Dublin and up through the city. and thousands of people came out to say their last goodbye to Michael. Today in the cemetery, his grave is the most visited grave. You can see by it the flowers, people leave letters here, love letters, Valentine cards, all sorts of things appear on the grave of Michael Collins. His epitaph is simplicity itself. It was written by his brother, and it says, "Here lies Michael Collins, born on the 12th of October 1890 and died on the 22nd of August 1922. May God give everlasting peace to his soul." Shin Shin, Michael Collins.